We're going to do a little fraction activity now called slicing bread for dinner. Nick, Andy, and Brittany are helping their grandma slice 3 loaves of bread for their family dinner. Nick has sliced 2 halves of his bread. Andy has sliced 2/4 of his bread. Brittany has sliced 2/6 of her bread. Brittany is saying she has sliced more bread than her brothers because 2/6 is greater than 2 halves and 2/4. Andy is saying he has sliced the most because 2/4 is the same as a half. So he has sliced half of the bread. Nick is saying he has sliced the most because his loaf is in 2 big parts. Who is correct? Prove your answer with pictures, numbers, and words. So what I want you to do is pause the video and I want you to tell me who is correct. Who has sliced more bread? Brittany, Andy, or Nick? And I want you to prove it with a drawing. So go ahead and pause. Write down who is correct. Let's put your answer in a sentence and then prove it using a drawing. So pause right now and write down your answer. Okay, so let's take a look and see how you did. So let's start with Brittany. Brittany is saying she has sliced more bread than her brothers because 2/6 is greater than 2 halves and 2/4. We are going to use this rectangle model, and notice that I divided it into 3 sections. I'm going to label each section. We'll start with Nick, N, A for Andy, and B for Brittany. So Nick has sliced 2 halves of his bread. So the denominator is 2, so I need 2 equal parts. So I'm going to look and try to find where the middle would be, probably about right there. And then don't forget, I'm going to label the fractional units, 1/2 and 1/2. It says that he sliced 2 halves. So our numerator and denominator is the same. He actually has sliced the whole loaf into 2 parts. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little shading here to show that Nick has sliced his bread into 2 halves. Now, let's look at Andy. I think that's supposed to be sliced 2/4 of his bread. So we remember that a 1/4 is half of a half. So we're going to divide our bar into half and then half each half, which gives us 2 on this side, 2 on this side, total of 4. So let's definitely label. Okay, and it says that he has sliced 2/4 or 2 out of 4 of the pieces. So let's go ahead and shade 1/4, 2/4. Okay, so there's the bread that Andy has sliced, and these 2/4 are his unsliced pieces. Now let's look at Brittany, B for Brittany. She has sliced 2/6 of her bread. So 6 is an even denominator, so we know that if we half 6, we have 3 and 3. So I'm going to draw a line halfway down and then make 3 parts on this side, 3 parts on this side, and that would be 2 lines. So I'm going to kind of just eyeball that. There's 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. Okay, I'm going to label those. 1, 6. Okay, now Brittany has sliced 2/6 or 2 out of 6 of the pieces. Okay, so let me go ahead and come over to the side and write each person's fraction. We have 2 halves, we have 2/4, and we have 2/6. Notice the numerator is the same in every fraction. So we have 2 copies of 1/2, 2 copies of 1/4, and 2 copies of 1/6. So Brittany's saying she sliced more bread than her brothers because 2/6 is greater than 2/2 and 2/4. 6 is a bigger denominator, but remember, the bigger the denominator, the smaller the piece. So no, Brittany, you are not correct. Let's look at Andy. Andy is saying he has sliced more because 2/4 is the same as a half, which that's true, and he has sliced half of the bread. He did slice half of the bread because 2/4 is equal to 1/2, but he did not slice the most bread. So Andy, you're right saying that 2/4 is equal to a half, but you're wrong because you didn't slice the most bread. And now let's go to Nick. Nick has sliced 2/2 of the bread. So Nick actually sliced the whole loaf because 2/2 is equal to a whole. So for our sentence, we would say Nick is correct in saying let's look back to what did he say? He has sliced the most. He has sliced the most bread because he sliced the whole loaf. And then let's go ahead and elaborate on that a little bit and say 2/2 is equal to 1 whole. So we have proved it with a drawing and with words. So we were comparing fractions that had the same numerator but different denominators. So you guys probably could look at those fractions and see that 2/2 is greater than 2/4 and is greater than 2/6. Let's do one more step. Let's go to the bottom and let's just order those fractions. So let's start with the largest. 2/2 is greater than, which fraction would be in the middle? 2/4. And 2/4 is greater than 2/6. So we put those in order from largest to smallest. We could turn them around and put them in order from smallest to largest. So I hope that you got that one right, and we'll do another one tomorrow.